DC Comics announced they have two new Batman upcoming miniseries coming, and it couldn't be from two different writers at two different points in their career with two different takes on the Dark Knight himself. We've got a Tom King series as well as Sean Gordon Murphy. Now, I'd imagine most readers aren't going to have a conundrum. They're either going to be on the Tom King Batman wagon, or they're going to be on the Sean Gordon Murphy Batman wagon. But I think it's a really interesting indication on what DC Comics really has on their hands, and it's like a Batman problem. I don't think they really know what they want to do with the characters. So you're getting these wildly diverging thematic representations of the character, which I don't think is altogether unhealthy. But there's almost no continuity within this whatsoever. Like, who's the Batman in DC Comics right now? Is it this depressed, mopey, can't win a fight Batman? Is it a strong, confident character? Is it something in the middle like we got with James Tynion, who, in a Batman in that case that talks a whole lot? We're getting these really different versions of the character, and I think everyone's, and with the amount of books that we're getting of Batman, everyone has to come to a decision, like, which Batman is your Batman? And I imagine most of the viewers are going to know right off the bat. I'm on the Sean Gordon Murphy Batman bandwagon, but I am going to go through both the series. I'm going to talk about them in detail. I'm going to talk about the good points that I have to talk about. And yes, I do have some good points to say about the Tom King miniseries, as well as some bad points. And yes, I have bad points to point out for the Sean Gordon Murphy miniseries. And obviously it's up to the readers, or the viewers in this case, to decide which Batman is going to be your Batman. And if you are unaware, my name is Wes. I am the host of Thank You Critical YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. If you've not subscribed, definitely subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. Now let's get right into it. So we're going to hit the Tom King Batman first. And this is going to see the classic Batman fighting villains, Catwoman, Penguin, Riddler, in his latest Batman story. And in March of 2022, this will premiere. And it will, like we said, we have Batman fighting against, a who's who of his villains. And also, it appears from the cover art that Killer Croc will be in here at some point. This is going to be a six-issue series titled Batman Killing Time with David Marquez, fantastic artist. Tom King is not a stranger to Batman. He wrote an 85-issue ongoing series of the character that, quite frankly, got cut short early because people got fed up with his take on the character. He did get to finish it. It's not quite done in the Batman Catwoman miniseries that we're going through right now. And that one really centered on the relationship between Batman and Selina Kyle. To be completely honest, really left a lot of people wanting. And you know what? Whether he likes it or not, Tom King is the author of Batman 50, one of the biggest disappointments in modern comic history. Promising one thing, swerving the readers, worse than that, really swerving and lying to their business partners and retailers who they were encouraging to go out and spend money on their own dime to promote this thing with midnight parties and going out and getting big wedding cakes for a wedding that was never going to happen. They knew that from the beginning. So that certainly soured people on Tom King. And I'm not going to go into Heroes in Crisis and Strange Adventures and Rorschach and Batman Catwoman that we're going on through now. So Tom King's career is really at a crossroads, and it's about time that he takes some measures to start rehabbing, his reputation, to be completely honest. Now, in Batman Killing Time, which does not appear to be a continuation of Batman Catwoman or even his Batman series that he had, it appears that it's going to be earlier in Batman's career. Selina is still a semi-villain. She's straddling the line, planning a big heist alongside Riddler and Penguin for some type of priceless artifact. And it is in the possession of Bruce Wayne himself. And it looks like, Catwoman may have a little hero in her after all, after the fallout of Batman Killing Time. And it's explained to be a bloody double crossover. So there's going to have some turns here and there for the characters. And this will go on sale March 1st. So those are the details if you're interested in the book. There are some good things to take away from this. There was a tweet yesterday from Tom King, and this is what it says. And I think he realizes he is at a crossroads in his professional career. He's written like 100 issues of Batman, and it's time for a change. This is what he had to say. I wrote Batman for 5 years, exploring the emotional depth of this most interesting man. A lot of people would argue yours truly included, that he was exploring his own emotional issues using Batman, but that's neither here nor there. The important part is this. He says Killing Time has nothing to do with any of that. This is a badass heist action epic. Mean folk on the run, Batman close behind. Tom King in the past has been more than just an adequate or a quality comic book writer. He's actually been really good, actually in the not too distant past. It's just as of late with those stories I went through, with his ending on Batman, Batman Catwoman, Heroes in Crisis, Rorschach, Strange Adventures. I think there's another one in there where he just got stuck in this rut where he couldn't tell anything but the same story. It is like, hey, how depressed can we make these characters? It sounds like he's realized the errors of his ways, according to what he said on Twitter. Like I said, I'll believe it when I see it, that he wants to make a change. And this is going to be a more action-based look at the character where we got some fun stuff. I imagine there are going to be some thematic undertones. It is a Tom King book. But if he can focus and put that story first and the fun parts of it, then you put in those other layers underneath it, and it makes a more fully fleshed out, enjoyable reading experience. So there is a chance, just based on what Tom King said on his social media, that he realized he made a mistake and it's time to do something different. So that is one good point. The other good point is Tom King is a much better writer when he's constricted. In this case, he only has 6 issues. He's been getting these 10 and 12 issue miniseries for so long. They end up having so much filler with nothing to do in it. With 6 issues, which is a long story, I think those are enough constraints within the framework of the action that he wants to tell that maybe he can't go off and meander and ruin the book. This type of limitation might save Tom King from Tom King. We know what happened with Heroes in Crisis. They ended up adding 3 extra issues on there. They added nothing to the comic book story. It made it worse. He did not need, 12 issues for Strange Adventures? With Tom King, less is more. So I do think the fact that he's getting these 6 issues, a limited run for this story arc, is probably going to be helpful for him as far as the quality and the execution of the story long haul. And like I said, it sounds like he might even be acknowledging some of the issues that he had. Now, of course, the bad is it's Tom King on Batman again. Can we see the same song and dance over and over? This has already failed multiple times. You had to remove the writer from the title early because he had depressed sales so much, over the course of his run, and people had just checked out, and they were tired of hearing about his mopey loser Batman. And then you gave him the Batman Catwoman series. Have you read that, DC Comics? It's essentially Selina making a decision who she's going to marry, Joker or Bruce Wayne. One of the oddest, takes on a story, like not even like good comic book weird on. That's just fucking stupid. Yet DC Comics let him publish the story. I will say this, and I don't root for Tom King to fail. I want everyone to succeed and tell the best story that they can. But I do think Tom King's worst enemy is Tom King. And this Batman Catwoman series has that put on full display. It's not very well executed. It's a drag. He gets great artists, but that can't save a book. The art can't save the book from Tom King, and Tom King can't save himself. From what we've seen, obviously, like I said, it sounds like he's making a change. But we've seen this song and dance before. We've seen Tom King's take on Batman, and it's been thoroughly rejected by the vast majority of DC Comics readers. I don't know why they're going back to this well. They were giving him essentially less and less important characters for these miniseries other than Batman Catwoman. At the end, he's on Human Target now. And I've heard that's good, but I've read so many bad Tom King stories, I'm not going to give it a chance. And that's kind of the conundrum that he's in. So it's going to take him a while to rehab his image, especially with Batman, because his takes on the character have been truly awful. And I'm not underselling that in the slightest. The other bad thing about this is it's once again likely the waste of another good artist. I mean, how many years of Clayman's prime have we lost at this point? Jorge Fornes, gets some major work on Batman, wasted on Tom King, gets to work with a character like Rorschach that's so well known, wasted on a terrible story by Tom King. And now we get David Marquez, who's done some brilliant work in the past, especially at Marvel Comics. I think his art in Batman Superman was also very inspired. So I know that this comic book, and definitely, there's some preview pages, it's going to look like $1 million. How many great artists can they waste on Tom King and trying to make him into what he was before? What are the hottest names in comic books? So those are the bad things I see about this. I mean, hey, I want Tom King to prove me wrong more than you could ever imagine. Now let's get into this other Batman series that we have. This one's from Sean Gordon Murphy. And I imagine you guys will know that I'm a little bit more upbeat about this one. And this is going to be the third chapter of Sean Gordon Murphy's Batman White Knight saga. It's going to begin in March, and it is going to be called and confirmed Batman Beyond the White Knight. It's an 8-part series, and it's set 10 years after the original Batman White Knight stories. And this is essentially an alternate timeline, part of the DC Omniverse, but it's like its own little corner of the universe with its own Batman, with his own history, and it's similar to the things that you've seen maybe in the animated series or in the comic books, tweaks here and there, but it's really refreshing, and it's a really cool take on the character. And in this case, in 10 years in the future, we're going to see Gotham Motors and its CEO, Derek Powers, have seized control of the Wayne family fortune and are using it and everything that the Wayne family possessed to change Neo-Gotham and the paramilitary police group known as the Gotham Terrorist Oppression Unit, GTO, for their own nefarious purposes. Of course, in the past, GTO has included Barbara Gordon, Dick Grayson. Oh my goodness, how am I forgetting the name of Signal? I've forgotten the name of Signal. That's how important the character is. But he's a much better version of that character within the White Knight universe. And in this case, as the name would imply, Batman Beyond the White Knight, Terry McGinnis is going to steal a Batman suit from Gotham Motors in order to become Batman himself. And we will see Bruce finally break out of prison. Yes, he's still been in prison since Batman Curse of the White Knight, and attempt to stop him from following in his very dangerous footsteps. And according to DC, Bruce is going to need some old friends and old enemies on his side. I think that all sounds very exciting. And what's even more exciting is Sean Gordon Murphy is excited. He says, I really missed working in Gotham, and it feels so great to be back. Drawing Neo Gotham as an upgraded, retrofitted futurescape has been a blast. I'm working hard to blend the Beyond aesthetic with the White Knight world. Batman Beyond and Terry McGinnis fans will get everything they loved about the animated series, as well as a few twists. Now, obviously, I have a lot of good to say about this, but I do have some things that make me a little bit nervous. First up, so far, the Murphyverse is great. And the idea behind it that Sean Gordon Murphy had put out before he kind of left social media sounded really exciting. But we've been waiting for it to come back. Obviously, we got that one shot of Freeze, and then we got the Harley Quinn miniseries from Katana Collins that was also really strong, but we've been kind of waiting for that Sean Gordon Murphy flavor to return back to this, and this is what we've all been waiting for. So I couldn't be more excited. I did not like Curse of the White Knight nearly as much as I liked the first one, but I still absolutely respect the craft, the execution, the art was fantastic. It just made some story choices that I didn't personally enjoy, but that's okay. It's his universe, and he's allowed to do that. And they weren't story choices that I think ruined the book. They just weren't, they weren't things that I personally enjoyed the most. One of the great things about this series, and what it sounds like it might be moving forward, is that Sean Gordon Murphy appears to have a level of creative freedom in the Murphyverse, which I think is a very strong selling point, that it's not going to be ruined by DC editorial and executives coming in and trying to use it like they've been using all the other characters and franchises lately. I think that is an enormous selling point as far as you can invest in the Murphyverse and feel pretty confident that it's not going to be ruined through negligence or, sheer incompetence. Sean Gordon Murphy is a comic book fan. He's a fan of Batman as well as the DC Comics universe. And as long as he has a level of creative freedom and control on this universe, that is a good thing. And I think that it will have fans salivating for more. as soon as this is done. Obviously, we had to wait a while in between Curse of the White Knight and this Beyond the White Knight series. One of the best selling points is going to be the art. Sean Gordon Murphy's art on Batman White Knight and Curse of the White Knight is impeccable. His line work is beautiful. The man knows how to draw the Batman universe. Perhaps the best thing about the book, even beyond the story, are all the really crazy Easter eggs. You can see that Sean Gordon Murphy has a love for Batman. He has a love for Gotham and the DC Comics and animated universes. So the art's going to be amazing. We're going to have great Easter eggs in there. He's got awesome designs as far as the new character designs that we've seen in both books so far. The man can, he can do some cars. Those car chases have been mind-blowing. So the art. Sean Gordon Murphy's going to bring it. It sounds like he's been working on it for a while. What's he going to do? How is he going to incorporate Batman Beyond into his White Knight universe? We could all only imagine, but we know it's going to be good because it's Sean Gordon Murphy. Another good thing is we did get Jason Todd introduced in the very last page of Curse of the White Knight, visiting Bruce in prison. It looked like he was some type of military officer, or maybe he was enlisted within the army. What is he going to do with that character? I imagine he did that introduction to do something with Jason Todd. Red Hood is one of my favorite characters in the entire DC Comics universe. I cannot wait to see what Sean Gordon Murphy wants to do with Jason Todd and hopefully the character of Red Hood within the White Knight universe. And then the last good point that I have to say about this is I imagine, it's got to be, right? He's going to be sowing the seeds for future expansion of this universe. He already laid out the groundwork and the rules of what the Murphyverse is going to be within Batman and White Knight. We've seen a couple of spinoffs so far. We're finally getting the third series, and hopefully this is a launching point for the White Knight universe moving forward, and we'll get continuous White Knight stories. Maybe not continuous, but we'll get more stories, moving forward, and there won't be such large breaks. I have a really good feeling that this is just the beginning, and that is all great. I do have a couple of bad things to say on this. I have some trepidations. The first one being Matt Hollingsworth, the longtime colorist that has worked with Sean Gordon Murphy, and specifically in the Batman White Knight books, the first and second volume. He's not on this book. And that sucks because I think he really brings a lot to the table as far as the aesthetic of the universe, some continuity to it. And I think that he and Sean Gordon Murphy are like peanut butter and jelly. They just go together, right? The saving grace is they are bringing on Dave Stewart as the colorist. He's no slouch. He's also a legendary color artist. So I imagine it's going to look maybe not quite as great. It'll look a little bit different. Obviously Dave Stewart it's not like a step down. It's just a different colorist on it. So there should be a little bit of a tweak in the aesthetic that I imagine most people will see. So you could do worse replacing Matt Hollingsworth with Dave Stewart, but we will miss Matt Hollingsworth. The other thing that I do have trepidations with, and I imagine you had it when I talked about the idea behind the story, is this new GTO sounds eerily, and I do mean eerily, like the Magistrate. I'm tired of the Magistrate. I don't ever want to see Future State anymore. I never want to hear about the Magistrate again, ever in my lifetime. And it sounds like the GTO might just be a new Magistrate that's being used by Gotham Motors. I hope that's not the case, but it is definitely a concern that I have, especially when you read through the description of what the story is going to be. So I do have a couple of things in the back of my mind that I think could go sideways on Sean Gordon Murphy, but I'm absolutely excited about this. I imagine this is probably the most anticipated comic story of 2022 that anyone's heard of so far. If they did a Batman 3 Jokers, sequel, people would be more excited about that or something. But hey, so far, when you look at the big projects that have been announced, I don't think anyone's touching Sean Gordon Murphy's third volume of the White Knight series. It's certainly not Tom King. He's got a lot of rehab to do on his take on Batman, but Sean Gordon Murphy is certainly beloved by fans. I think he's shown himself to be a good steward of the characters, and I think people appreciate that. He has a level of professionalism. We just saw him on Twitter a couple of days ago on his professional account that he doesn't normally go on. He went there and didn't ask me anything. So it's good to see Sean Gordon Murphy back in the DC world. I'm excited for this. I'm certainly less excited about the Batman Killing Time from Tom King, but it's only 6 issues. That fits better with Tom King's skill set. And it sounds like via social media that Tom King, has kind of acknowledged some of the issues that he had with the character. What do you guys think? Which Batman are you looking forward to?